Okay, so I want to share this information again. This is concerning the blood donor programs and different blood donation guidelines and deferrals that have been put in place. Um, and I know to some it might seem like I'm being repetitive because I've shared this information quite a few times. And I don't mean to be repetitive, but I do mean to make sure that people are aware, especially since there are more instances and more cases popping up of HIV/AIDS and syphilis and different STDs and things. And one thing that you have to understand is that there were guidelines and things in place for a reason, because there was scientific evidence that proved that people who had HIV, not necessarily AIDS, but HIV, were transmitting it through their blood donations and through blood products. So they went through and they put guidelines and things in place for a reason, and the FDA was, of course, involved. But when it comes to doing research for vaccines and different things that they need blood for, they made some exceptions, and I do believe that these were made in error, and I don't believe that they were in the best interest of the people. And I think more people really should be aware. But this PDF file here, I'll try to share a link in the description if my device will allow me to do so. But I just wanted to point out just one thing. This is the revised recommendations for reducing the risk of human immunodeficiency virus transmission by blood and blood products. A guidance for industry. This guidance is for immediate implementation. Okay, and then there's links in the PDF file that will show up. You can follow. I've got. I believe I have those somewhere in some of this paperwork too. But in this one here, this was updated August 2020, a year ago. And back a year ago, actually, there were several cases that were popping up in and around in Minnesota, in Hennepin County. And I only came across those because I was actually investigating other things that were going on in Hennepin County. And when I started following some of the money trail that was linked to some of the clinics that are in Hennepin County, I came across some very interesting links to NIH with AIDS, with Johns Hopkins University as well. There's just one page here that I'm going to skip to really quick that I just want to make sure that people are aware of. And this is on page 8 of this PDF file. I'll put a link in the description again if my device will allow me to. But this is where they talk about the donor deferrals, where we recommend that you defer as follows. Number 1, defer indefinitely an individual who has ever had a positive test for HIV. Number 2, defer for 3 months from the most recent event an individual who has exchanged sex for money or drugs. If anybody's paying attention to a few other things that are going on, oh, the phone turned. Let me see. There we go. I think that's the right way now. Actually, it probably would be better if I did turn it like that. There we go. There's also been other information and news and articles surfacing concerning sex trafficking and sex workers as well, which I do believe is tied into some of this. But anyway, number 3, defer for 3 months from the most recent event an individual who has engaged in non-prescription injection drug use. Well, and we have a whole bunch of homeless people that were just rounded up in several different cities, not just California. And I saw some of those people hauling out bucketfuls of used needles, okay? Here's number 4, their recommendation to defer as follows. Defer for 3 months from the most recent sexual contact an individual who has had sex with a person who has ever had a positive test for HIV. Number 5, defer for 3 months from the most recent sexual contact an individual who has had sex with an individual who has exchanged sex for money or drugs in the past 3 months. If the individual has any uncertainty about when their sexual partner exchanged sex for money or drugs, defer the individual for 3 months from their most recent sexual contact. And again, how do you know what their most recent sexual contact is? Unless you have sex workers that are working in a controlled environment, which I know a lot of people probably don't agree with it, but it is one of the oldest professions, and Nevada actually has legal brothels here. Women are checked. You know what I mean? The workers are regulated when it comes to that aspect. And there are certain parts of that, that's a whole nother video to discuss on certain things as far as workers' rights and things are concerned. Because there's a lot of things you may not agree with. But if you're fighting for the freedom of choice and people's freedoms, you should be fighting for all. But when it comes to certain things like this, when it comes to these so-called professionals and these medical folks involved with these research groups start stepping in and making decisions that actually put people's lives at a greater risk, there comes a time when you have to say, wait a minute. And I believe that this is one of those times when we really have got to stop and say, wait a minute. Not only did they go through prior to this thing being launched, that we're going through right now, not only did they change the HIPAA laws, but they went through and they changed a lot of laws and guidelines for blood and blood donating, and for the use and research with blood and stem cells and different things in the name of emergency use. So there's a theme there when it comes to that EUA, emergency use authorization, that needs to be stripped. That needs to be removed. Once that emergency authorization is removed, everything else goes away too. So the next time that we rally together, we need to rally together to start ending the emergency use authorizations that are being exploited and used as control measures and tools by local jurisdictions and local elected officials and people in charge. The emergency use authorization needs to go. And yeah. Anyway, I'll try putting a link in the description to this PDF file, and you can peruse through more of it. It's a lot of very interesting information. And there's a lot of additional information that is available in the PDF file and different links that you can click on as well. There was one more here. It does discuss a little bit of the background for AIDS. And a lot of this here that you're going to read in this PDF, a lot of it is somewhat true, but the majority of it in the baseline is absolutely false. And I'm telling y'all, there's so many different things that, you know, I could go on reading on the other things that are being deferred, but you have to do your own research yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Do your own research yourself, because how do they know who's having sex with who? And do we go by the honor system? Just saying, folks. So just try to do a little bit of research yourself. Again, there's plenty of links and plenty of information that's available concerning what some of the guidelines and different things that were put in place, which they called guidance for industry for blood and blood products and HIV. So, okay. Stay safe and mindful, y'all.